Hello, I'm Dr. Darnell, and welcome to this video about behavioral science management theory. At the end of the session, you'll be able to define the behavioral management science approach, summarize the components of behavioral science, identify the principal characteristics of behavioral science, and discuss an example of behavioral science management. Behavioral science uses research and the scientific method to determine and understand behavior in the workplace. Behavioral science draws from several different fields and theories, primarily those of psychology, social neuroscience, and cognitive science. The behavioral science approach and the myriad of fields it encompasses is the most common study of management science today. Combined, the behavioral science approach is broadly about understanding individual and group behavioral dynamics to initiate meaningful organizational development. Many of the theories in behavioral management perspective are included in the behavioral science approach to management. For example, the Hawthorne studies use the scientific method and are also considered to be part of the behavioral science approach. Behavioral science differs from the behavioral management perspective in encompassing an objective, quantified approach to explain and predict behavior. Behavioral science within the business and management environment is a specific application of this field and employs a number of specific types of behavioral observations. This includes concepts such as information processing, relationships and motivation, and organizational development. Components of behavioral science. Information processing involves determining how people process stimuli in their environment. This field deals with the processing of stimuli from the social environment by cognitive entities in order to engage in decision-making, social judgment, and social perception. The field is particularly concerned with the information processing as it relates to individual functioning and the survival of an organism in a social environment. Relationships. Behavioral sciences also includes relational sciences that deal with relationships, interaction, communication networks, association, and relational strategies or dynamics between organisms or cognitive entities in a social system. The emphasis on using quantitative data and qualitative research methods to determine how people process information and understand social relationships is important to helping managers better understand the proven methods for increasing employee motivation and employee productivity. Motivation. Motivation as experienced desires and aversions highlights the association of motivation with emotion. It is believed that emotions are automatic appraisals based on subconsciously stored values and beliefs about the object. To the extent that distinct emotions relate to specific subconscious appraisals, motivation theory involves specifying values that people find motivating, along with mechanisms by which they might attain these values, such as mastery, setting challenging goals, attending to required tasks, persistence, etc. Organizational development. The primary application of behavioral science approach can be seen in the field of organizational development. Organizational development is an ongoing, systematic process of implementing effective organizational change. Organizational development is considered both a field of applied behavioral science that focuses on understanding and managing organizational change, as well as a field of scientific study and inquiry. It uses components of behavior science and studies in the fields of sociology, psychology, and theories of motivation, learning, and personality to implement effective organizational change and aid in the development of employees. The study of human behavior in the context of organizational change is an integral part of empowering organizations to grow, adapt, and learn to capture the competitive advantage. The 8 characteristic features of behaviorism. First is regularities. The behavioralists hold the opinion that human behavior, despite its differences, shows some remarkable uniformities in behavior, such that can be generalized and formulated in a systematic theory. The generalizations reached can predict phenomena. Though the behavior is determined by so many factors, it is not always uniform, yet it has been observed that human beings behave in certain respects in more or less the same manner on different occasions. Verification. The behavioralists do not accept anything as granted, like traditionalists. They do not believe that the abstract theory, rather they verify and test everything. Anything which cannot be verified or tested can be termed only as dogmatic and not scientific. They believe in empirical or scientific results, which only can be achieved after scientific verification. Techniques. The behavioralists emphasize the adoption of correct techniques for acquiring and interpreting scientific data. Only then, valid, reliable, and comparable data can be achieved. For this purpose, they suggest the use of sophisticated tools like multivariate analysis, samples, surveys, mathematical methods, simulation, etc., vigorously objecting to the traditionalist point of view that data in social sciences can never be objective and that technique should not be exalted at the cost of content. Quantification. Behavioralists contend that a researcher cannot properly explain phenomena, nor can they safely predict the results for the future without measurement and quantification. Values. This is the greatest point of difference between the behavioralists and the traditionalists over the questions of value neutrality. While behavioralists believe in value-free study, the traditionalists believe in value-laden study. They contend that any value which cannot be tested empirically is an ethical value. For example, democracy, equality, or freedom are excellent values to uphold, but their truth or falsity cannot be proved in a scientific manner. Scientific inquiry, to be objective, therefore, must be value-free. On the other hand, if one prefers B instead of A, that value can be measured. As such, it is empirical in character. Consequently, the behavioralists reject only the ethical values and not the empirical values. Behavioralists believe in systemization. They believe in research that must be systematic. By that we mean it must be theory-oriented and theory-directed. That theory and research should form as closely integrated parts of a coherent and orderly body of knowledge, and that research untutored by theory may prove trivial and theory, unsupported by data, futile. Behavioralists believe in pure science. They by and large insist on what they call a pure science approach. This means that whatever research they do should be applied in solving the problems of mankind. Therefore, they apply the scientific theory to social problems. Behavioralists also make research the point of social problems. Integration. Finally, behavioralists believe that social phenomena cannot be studied in isolation. It is difficult to draw the exact dividing line between man's social, economic, political, cultural, and other activities, and they can be understood only in the wider context of the entire social life of society. Therefore, the behavioralists believe in an integrated approach, and for this purpose, management scientists have to study other social sciences like sociology, history, economics, anthropology, etc. So the behavioral science approach is, in other words, the behavioral science approach is a disciplinary approach. Now let's look at an example of a behavioral science theory. We'll look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's a theory in psychology. It argues that there are 5 stages of human needs that motivate our behavior. Abraham Maslow proposed this theory in 1943 after studying what he considered exemplary people such as Albert Einstein and Eleanor Roosevelt. At stage 1, there is the physiological needs that must be met. We need to breathe, eat, drink, or sleep. The moment we get enough of these elements and we feel awake and our bellies are full, we get motivated by the next thing. Stage 2, we want safety. We try to earn money, build up resources, and look for shelter that protects us against dangers. Once we are satisfied and feel safe, we have time to think about what we want next. At stage 3, we seek love and belonging. We desire to be close to family and friends and belong to society or a large group. But the moment we feel completely part of the group, we already wish to be a little different from the rest. So at stage 4, we look for self-esteem, self-confidence, and respect from our peers. We want to be someone. If we have money, we want to buy a fancy watch. If we have a brain, we want to write or think or work a lot. We have motivation to perform and compete is now at the highest of our desires. Students, sportsmen, and inventors excel at this. Neil Armstrong even flew to the moon. At stage 5, the next stage, when we have our physiological needs met, our safety needs are met, our self-esteem needs are met, Then we want to achieve self-actualization. We can be creative and accept facts for what they are and give back to society and do whatever we want. No more pressure, unless of course there's trouble in one of the areas below. If you're a leader and believe in the theory, use it. First, make sure everyone has their safety needs met. Make them and help them belong to the group. And once they feel they belong, they're ready to stand out and excel. In this session, we defined the behavioral science approach. We identified components of behavioral science. We summarized the primary characteristics of behavioral science. We explored an example of behavioral science management. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.